party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated, yes.
To our favorite shows!
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Pearson and Blurnsball.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast, TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show is The Mighty Ducks Game Changers, brought to you by the good people at Walt Disney Studios, Goldsmith USPA Productions, Broco, Brillstein Entertainment Partners, ABC Signature, and Disney Plus. This is where you can watch it now, should you so desire. Joining me tonight is that handsome devil on your computer screen, Mr. Evan Bevins. How do you do, sir?
I'm doing good, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. This took a lot to get together. We had it scheduled, and then 97 people wanted to talk about it, and then nobody could make it, and only half of them were interested, and the only one left standing was Evan Bevins, who was no longer on the show. So I said, hey, let's you and me figure out a day where it's just going to be me and you, because this franchise seems to mean a lot to you. And I wanted you to talk to me about that, man. Like, you've been talking Mighty Ducks, talking my ear off about the Mighty Ducks for like the past month and a half. Like, how did you come to the Mighty Ducks?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not that into it or anything. It's not like I had a Mighty Ducks hat just laying around to put on or anything. I'm trying to remember. I don't think I saw the original movie in the theaters. I think I watched it with my brother. He's the one that got me into watching it. Like, we rented it a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. There were these stores where they had copies of movies. And you would go rent them and bring some sort of physical object into your home and put it on a machine.
Right.
So that's how we watched the first one. It was okay. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I mean, you know, it's your standard underdog sports movie. So then I think we did go to the theater to see D2, The Mighty Ducks, which, of course, the fact that they were just parodying Terminator 2 was a lot of what appealed to me. For the kids movie, but I liked it. You know, they went international, added some more characters, went bigger, and you know, half the original team, which included Jussie Smollett, which I didn't realize until a couple months ago. Half the original team disappeared. They brought some new kids in from around the country, and did like the junior Goodwill games. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Liked it even better than the first one. So then I remember my brother and I were watching some movie or another, and this trailer comes on, and oh my gosh, it's Mighty Ducks 3. I'm like, well, we got to go see that.
All right.
And this is why I really think everybody else begged off, was because I heard the Long Road to Ruin, you and I forget who else was on it, did a couple years ago about Mighty
Sean
Ducks.
Palmer. Yeah, that was our Christmas episode.
Okay, and I listened to it. I listened to it while getting leaves out of the yard not too long ago. Yeah, I know it's not fall, but that's how much I procrastinated in the fall and winter. And you guys were not kind to Mighty Ducks 3.
No, we were not.
And that's my favorite one of the series. In fact, I used to say Mighty Ducks was like the only franchise I knew that got better with each movie. Now, I talked my youngest into watching it with me, and I have to admit that, I mean, watching all three, I like the first one better than I remembered, and there are some weaknesses in D3. But I just figured everybody else begged off because they knew that I was just going to fight for the honor of Mighty Ducks 3, and we weren't even going to get to the show.
Yeah, I'm sure that was part of it.
It was either that, or you said to everybody, look, as soon as you make fun of D3, this guy's going to start crying, and we're doing video now, and that's going to be really embarrassing. So just don't. No, I do still love the third one. You know, the final act where they're you know, where they realize that all the goofy comedy stuff didn't work. It didn't work in the real world hockey, so to speak, and they kind of overcome that. I still love the last third of that movie, and you guys can't change my mind. But
and we certainly aren't here to do that.
No.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you'd listen to our Long Road to Ruin on the Mighty Ducks, and I'll tell you, I think if you listen to the show, like, I was not a huge fan of the franchise. I grew up on Long Island. We have the Islanders. We're about 45 minutes away from Madison Square Garden where the Rangers play. So it's not like I'm unknown to hockey, and I have been to a few games. In fact, I've been to a few Lightning games now that I live here in Tampa. But, like hockey's not like my big thing. My big thing is like combat sports and stuff. But Sean...
Wait, hockey's not a combat sport?
Not in the strictest sense, no. That's not really the point. So anyway, so I'm not like the world's biggest hockey fan, and when the movie franchise came out, I think I don't even remember when the first one came out, but I was probably older, like a little, maybe too old for the franchise at that point. I'd seen at the very least the first one, but I, as I said on the Long Road to Ruin, which is up in the archives now, plug. It was a big deal to Sean. Sean was a big hockey fan, and so when we were looking for like movies to review around the holiday season, he had suggested it. And coming away from the franchise, thinking back on that Long Road to Ruin, the first one is definitely cute. It has a lot of heart. It is a very good family entertainment movie, with a sports theme. I think the second one, I said the second one had some issues with, structurally with it, but overall they were still kind of keeping the quality up. And then like the third one, I just trashed it. And I think it's funny that this is now the second show we've done in the span of a few months where an old Long Road to Ruin got me in trouble present day, because I had the same issue with Jesse Starcher where I shit all over Back to the Future 2, and he was like, "We will have words," and generated a whole new show. We ended up doing an on trial for Back to the Future 2. So here we are. We're not doing an on trial for D3, and we're not going to. I'm just no. I said all I need.
I'll take this to the Supreme Movie Court if I have to.
But so I want to get your reaction to when they announced that Disney announced that they were going to do a straight to Disney Plus, like all things are now, series based on the movie. A lot of people, for a lot of like treasured IP, things that they love, whenever there's an announcement there's going to be like a streaming television show or a reboot or something, it's always like, I don't know about that. I don't want them to take this thing that I love and ruin it. What was your reaction to the announcement about the Mighty Ducks Game Changers?
I kind of thought, wonder how that's going to work. Because I had been, like I said, different strokes and all, but I love Mighty Ducks 3, and I was like, okay, so in the next one, they're like Charlie and Fulton going to go pro. Is that what it's going to be?
Right.
And they can do a fourth one. And then it became apparent that was never going to happen. And so, I was like, oh, this is cool. I mean, I saw Emilio Estevez on there. I can't remember if any of the commercials got that awesome Mighty Ducks theme, the instrumental theme in there, but I'm like, okay, I'll give this a shot. I had WandaVision, Mandalorian. Yeah, they got a good track record for me. I know you loved the ending to WandaVision. I just listened to that. You were super pumped. But I kept waiting to see how Game Changers was going to introduce the Mighty Ducks multiverse. I was really disappointed the animated characters didn't show up at any point. But I was like, well, this is cool, and I just happened to post a link about it to my brother and somebody else we know that likes Mighty Ducks, and then you messaged me and you're like, hey, are you going to watch that? You want to review it? And I'm like, sure. It'll give me a reason to watch it other than just watching it.
Very cool. Yeah, when I saw it, I wasn't tremendously interested. I'm going to be honest with you. This wasn't really my thing. This isn't my franchise. But there was so much enthusiasm. And I think that's what interested me the most about this, is how much it touched a generation of people that I am currently friends with. I was saying that to my wife. Like, I had no idea this meant that much to people. To me, it was just kind of a fun kids movie and kind of, one ear in one ear and out the other. But apparently it touched a lot of people. And it's pretty meaningful. And so when this came back, people were really excited about it. So let's get into the show itself.
Oh, I was going to say one thing. I wanted to mention, like you, I'm not a big hockey guy. I just, it was just something about the characters and the comedy and the music. I mean, I remember, I don't know if it was because of Mighty Ducks or because there was a cute girl that liked hockey in high school, or a combination of both. But I remember sitting down to watch the Stanley Cup one night, and I'm like, okay, let's give this a shot. I think I watched for 20 minutes to half an hour, never seeing the puck, never once. and then I looked away and they scored a goal. And
Right.
I'm like, okay, this just isn't happening. So it wasn't love of hockey, but I mean, I always figured you don't have to love, like, or even understand the sport to like a good sports movie.
No. There's plenty of, I mean, there's some great movies featuring basketball, and I'm not even like the world's biggest football fan. Like, I'll watch the Super Bowl. I'll sometimes watch some games in the playoffs. If it's on, I'll pay attention to it. Many times pay attention to it, not the people I'm actually at the bar with. But I will, there's great football movies out there. One of my favorites, this is going to show my age. You may never even heard of it. Wildcats with Goldie Hawn.
Oh, I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's the sport of kings, better than diamond rings, football.
No, I haven't seen that one. My favorite, even more so than We Are Marshall, because I went to Marshall and was technically an extra, but the screen fades to black before you get to the part that I was in.
Oh, really?
But,
you're an extra in that film, huh?
Well, kind of. I mean, like I said, it fades to black before. I like to tell people, like, if they just gone like 2 more seconds, I would have been in there. But but we got a rousing speech from McG on campus. So, but my favorite is Necessary Roughness. She doesn't have a female quarterback, but we do have Kathy Ireland as the kicker.
That is a great one. I love Necessary Roughness.
Plus, you can pretend that it's an extended episode of Quantum Leap, where Sam Beckett leaps into an aging quarterback.
Terrific. All right, let's get into the show here. The Mighty Ducks Game Changers is a sports comedy drama streaming based on the 1992 movie, written by Steve Brill, created by Brill, Josh Goldstein, and Kathy Uspa for Disney Plus. The series serves as a follow-up to the films and is produced by ABC Signature and Brillstein Entertainment, with Brill serving as head writer and Goldsmith and Uspa serving as showrunners. The leads are Laura Graham. Did you ever watch Gilmore Girls? That was my wife's a huge fan of that show.
I did not.
And as soon as I saw her, I was like, "Hey, it's Gilmore Girl lady. It's Mom from Gilmore Girls."
Yeah, no, I know a lot of people who liked it. I think I probably would like it. I don't know, for whatever reason. I think that was on during my Buffy years, and I was less likely to watch things that didn't involve people getting punched or exploding or both.
Sure. So yeah, she's in this. They brought back Emilio Estevez. Obviously, it also stars Brady Noon as the lead boy. He plays Evan Morrow, who is Lauren Graham's son. She plays Alex Morrow. We have Maxwell Simpkins as Nick Gans. You asked me if he was like my favorite character in this, and he's so funny. The kid is such a good actor in this.
Oh yeah.
But he was. There were many favorites. We have Swayam Bhatia as Sophie Hansen Bott, Julie, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Serda as Stephanie, Alex's boss, Luke Islam as Koob, Bella Higginbotham as Lauren, Tygan Burns as Maya, Kiefer O'Reilly as Logan, Dejan Watts as Sam, and then, as I said before, Emilio Estevez returns as Gordon Bombay. They also got part of the cast back. Matt Doherty as Lester, Eldon Henson as Fulton Reed, Garrett Henson as Guy Germain, Vincent A. LaRusso as Adam Banks, Marguerite Moreau as Connie Moreau, and then Justin Wong as Ken Wu. Ken Wu!
Woo, woo, woo. Kenny Wu.
Yes, sir. All right. So the plot of this thing. Now a hockey powerhouse, the Mighty Ducks junior team is selective about who makes the cut. After being cut and told he is wasting his time, 12-year-old Evan Morrow, at the urging of his mother, forms a new team of underdogs with the help of the original Ducks coach, Gordon Bombay, who has since become the despondent owner of a low-level ice rink. All right. So our first episode, which aired on March 26th, Game On, the plot goes like this. After her son is cut from the Mighty Ducks, struggling single mom Alex Morrow decides to help Evan start his own hockey team so he can have fun and get away from the stressful win-at-all-costs atmosphere the Ducks promote. With Evan and his neighbor Nick set about recruiting players, Alex searches for a rink. After being turned down by many area rinks, Alex stumbles upon the Ice Palace, a rundown rink owned by and operated by Gordon Bombay, who has reverted to his old personality of hating hockey and is barely keeping the rink afloat. He initially refuses Alex, wanting to remain distant from hockey, but is convinced when Alex offers him money from a state hockey program in exchange for renting the facilities. Evan and Nick, meanwhile, recruit a team of young misfits, many of whom don't have hockey experience. But despite the odds being stacked against them, the team announces their intent to challenge the rest of the league and Alex, whom Evan asked to be coach, names the squad the Don't Bothers. So let's kick things off here. This first episode, I was like weirdly engaged right from the start. Right off the bat, just from a critical standpoint, there's nobody giving like a really terrible performance in this. Lauren Graham is great. She plays the overprotective, just stressed out single mom very, very well. Emilio Estevez, I didn't remember his performance from the first one as far as how he was portraying Gordon. We just kind of remembered him eventually turning a corner and finding himself and wanting to be the best coach he could for the Ducks and, and help these kids out. So seeing him kind of back in that I hate hockey thing, him and Lauren Graham had great chemistry on camera, and their exchanges were really funny to me.
Oh yeah.
The kids who are usually like they could sink this production real quick are actually really cool. I'm gonna have a lot to say about the kid who plays her son. Oh gosh, so bad with names. Evan, yeah. The kid who plays Evan, he's a really good actor, but the Evan character is written extremely well. What did you think of this first episode?
Well, they had me hooked right at the beginning. They had I could hear the Mighty Ducks theme. They even had the Zamboni cleaning the ice was Hendricks Hockey, which is the company that sponsored them in the Junior Goodwill games in D2. So, I mean, like I right there, I thought in the first couple episodes they had better continuity on the show than they did in the original movies. So, and I thought it was cool. Once it's made clear that the Ducks are the powerhouse team, they're kind of like the Hawks were in the first movie. And I'm sure that your mind immediately went to the same place mine did, which is the Dark Knight. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
The show, I think, very effectively deals with. I actually did want to talk to you about this. I don't know if you were an athlete. I know you grew up to become a journalist, big into comics and whatnot. But I don't know if you've ever played any like sports. There was a couple of people in our group chat who like the way that this deals with what youth sports has unfortunately evolved into. Like it gave them traumatic memories and whatnot. And there is this big culture now of like hyper intense kids sports, and to the point where there's now starting to be a backlash to it. And there we go. And that's what the show deals with thematically.
Yeah, I played soccer and basketball like in elementary school, and I figured out really quickly on soccer that there was some sort of league rule that every kid had to play at least 2 quarters, because I got to play 2 quarters a game, and I knew that that I had to. That was the only reason that I got in that often. Now, granted, I was also one of those kids who was like picking at grass when the ball was at the other end of the field. So I'm not saying it wasn't deserved, but yeah, I didn't. I checked out on that. I decided not to try out for the 7th grade basketball team, which is too bad because they literally took all 30-some kids that showed up. So I probably could have made it one more year. But my biggest athletic contribution was that when they were picking teams on the playground, I was always the last one picked over not getting to play at all in basketball because they knew I would keep score. So,
gotcha. Do you have you had much experience dealing with the sort of hyper intense atmosphere of modern children's sports?
Not really. My kids are more into dance. My oldest tried a few sports, but they were still at the teach and hey, just give an effort and it's all good phase, and she just gravitated away from that. So no, I haven't. I mean, other than occasionally getting complaint calls about coverage for the newspaper, if we didn't cover every single game, then we must not like your kid or their school.
Nice.
Which is not the case. I mean, everybody bends over backwards to try to make sure they're covering everybody fairly. But and a lot of times people will understand that if you explain it to them. But no, I really haven't had too much experience with that, other than seeing the occasional viral story about somebody that punched the umpire or started some kind of fight at a kid's game. But I was probably part of the worst side of it, because when my brother, he's about 10 years younger than me. When he was playing t-ball, my stepdad and I would go, and we'd be like, so what's the score? And somebody's like, oh, no, we don't keep score. I'm like, but then they're just hitting the ball and running around in circles. What?
Right.
I mean, it's like, it's okay if they win or lose, but I don't understand the point. So my stepdad and I would keep score and tell my brother afterward whether he won or not.
That's funny. I coached my daughter's, I guess when she was in kindergarten, somewhere in there. I coached her soccer team for a year, and I am not any kind of soccer expert. What sports I did play, I played a little bit of volleyball in high school. I was a wrestler for a little bit. I eventually just kind of abandoned sports altogether and stuck with like drama and writing and whatnot, and did those kinds of stuff.
Was it because they wouldn't let you wear a mask when you wrestled?
I might have stayed with wrestling, but a lot of the kids I wrestled with were douchebags, so I didn't want to be there. They were less douchey in theater. So, and I don't know if you know this about me or not, but I am kind of a theatrical personality. No. I did not mesh well with the jocks. But I, trained as a professional wrestler. It's funny you bring up the mask thing. I did that for a little while. Trained as a professional wrestler, did that for a couple of months. Not wrestled. I never had a match, but I was like a manager type, as part of the ring crew for XPW for a little bit, in my pre-social work years. And then I've played I've played pickup basketball games with my friends or pickup football games and stuff like that. So I have like ancillary connections with the sports world, but nothing major. No
rollerblade street hockey or anything like that.
Not rollerblades. We might have run around in like a field hockey kind of thing in the middle of the street. So a little more about this episode. Tell me what your thoughts on the mom character. What did you think of Emilio Estevez when you saw him back in this?
Oh yeah, no, I thought it was great seeing him back, and he had a lot of good lines. It was kind of funny. It always seems like every few years when you go through the movies and then the show, Gordon Bombay just reverts to type, and it's like, haven't you learned this lesson already?
And I mean, he got away with it and learned nothing.
Yeah, but and to their credit, it wasn't just like a one episode thing. I mean, he hung on for a while. I mean, nobody actually thought, oh, he's never going to help them. But yeah, I did kind of expect him to come around and instantly become the coach. But I thought it was neat that they had Lauren Graham end up being the coach. And yeah, no, she was great. She's always funny and does a good job in just about everything I've seen her in. So I thought the cool thing, we'll get into this with more of the other episodes, but in the movies, each kid had like a little trait or something that you could identify them with, but you only had 90 or so minutes to do it. So these kids were a lot more three-dimensional than the ones in the movies. I mean, except for Joshua Jackson, who his character basically changed in every movie. He was the plucky underdog at first, then he was the boy who would be coach, then he was like, the second best player on the team out of nowhere in D3. But this was cool that you got to like really get to know these kids, and that they didn't just break it up. It wasn't like a movie broken into 10 parts. They did a little movie and a little sitcom and kind of explored all the kids except the two kids from the Czech Republic, but they were funny too.
Yeah, they were there for sight gags. Yeah, I have to say, and we'll move on to the second episode after this, that one of the strengths of the show, my daughter and I binged it together prior to watching this. Took us a day and a half, and we both kind of came to the conclusion that one of the great strengths of the show is that while it's a little on the tropey side, they don't overly commit to those tropes. They kind of turn some of them on their head. Like, you brought up Laura staying the coach until she kind of has her off the rails moment, and then even that's resolved fairly quickly.
Her Gordon Bombay moment, if you will.
Yeah. Emilio Estevez is taking his time. They don't overly use him. They really made this about the mom and her son, which I liked thematically about the show, that it wasn't immediately an Emilio Estevez, though this was part of it, redemption story. You're absolutely right about the characters being fleshed out. They didn't feel like caricatures. They actually felt like people. And I'm going to bring this up a couple more times probably as we talk about this, but what I really liked about this, and this is especially emblematic of the son, And that is, nobody acts like an asshole in this show. Like, people make mistakes. Everyone has foibles. That's the human experience. But the problem with a lot of television is why I tend to not review a lot of television, believe it or not. What we do here, we kind of do because it's related to the movies or whatever, much like this show we're talking about now. But I don't necessarily get into especially a lot of network television, because people just act like stupid idiots. And they make decisions that no human being would rationally make with the information they're being given. And that show, the show is so well written, like surprisingly well written, especially for the company that put it out. Like, I was floored about how, like, the kids are reasonable. And even when they're mad or they make a mistake, it's perfectly within the realm of believability. They would make that mistake and they resolve it quickly. And I got to get the kid's name again. But yeah, Brady at Noon as Evan Morrow. He is actually especially towards the end, he is my favorite character in this, because he's the most reasonable person on the show. Even when tempted, he makes the right decisions. And, it was really like a joy to watch. I don't like cringe television, and I don't like cringe characters. And my daughter and I were like relieved that there aren't like way cringy moments in this show.
Yeah, the only character that I thought was like totally over. I mean, Alex's boss, Stephanie, she kind of pushed it, but they didn't even make her a caricature. The only one that I thought went a little too far was the coach of the Ducks. I mean, he was a throwback to the coaches in the movies that are just like, these soulless monsters that, right. Like want to destroy the other team or whatever. But he had some good moments too, but he was the only one that I thought, pushed it a little far.
I'll allow it, just because I think the show needed at least one villain that, sure. That really pushes the tension and pushes the plot forward. I think you can get away with it with one character, and even he might have been a complete asshole in the sense of that's just how his character is written. But he doesn't make terrible bad decisions that no human being would make under those circumstances. The decisions he makes throughout the show contextually fit for somebody who's winning at all costs and doesn't really care about the kids.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree with that. He didn't mess anything up. I just he was the only one that occasionally I went, wait a minute. But yeah, I mean, he didn't it didn't take me out of the show or anything like that. I did mean to ask, when you were talking about your own sports career, would you say that you have more of a podcast body?
Yes.
That was 10 minutes into that, I was like, okay, I got to mention that when we do the. Because Nick just had the best lines.
Right. He did. I like later on in the series, and it doesn't matter if we jump around a little bit if there's something that we want to talk about. But Nick has a great line later on where he's lamenting. First, he's lamenting the loss of the older girl. Then he's lamenting losing the "I got a goal" to Logan, and everyone's like, "But you're good at school," and he's like, "No, I'm not." Like, I'm a straight B- kid, Thank you, Jonas. He's like, I'm not good at school, and like this is a running gag for at least an episode or two, where everyone's like, "Aren't you good at school?" He's like, "No, I'm not." Why does everyone keep saying that? Which was actually kind of refreshing, because I remember, I don't know if you ever saw, I think it's Little Giants.
No, well, parts of it.
Okay, but the premise of Little Giants is it's a peewee football team, and it's the same thing as this. The underdogs beat the monsters in kids sports, and there's always the character. This is why I'm bringing this up. There's always a character in any of these family sports movies where there's always the brainy character, and sometimes he's a player, and sometimes he's kind of like an assistant coach. Like in Little Giants, they had the brainy character who was like helping them design plays and like the big plays, the Statue of Liberty, and all this nonsense. I kind of thought that's what they were doing with Nick, because in the beginning, they're trying to recruit. What's the Indian gal's name? Sophie. Yeah, when they're trying to recruit Sophie, and he's like, "Oh, I've done the math on this." I'm like, "Oh, you're the brainy character, okay."
Yeah.
And then later on, it's like, but he's just not. He's more than one thing, which is nice writing for a character.
Exactly. Yeah, and he wasn't like the. I mean, in the movies they had other kids deliver funny lines, but like, it was Averman and Goldberg. They were the two that always had like the wisecracks. And then Logan had great line. A lot of the kids had good lines, but like Logan was hilarious too.
Oh, absolutely. Episode 2, Dusters. The Don't Bothers meet at the Ice Palace for their first practice. Evan is excited to get to work, but he quickly becomes dismayed when Alex's coaching focuses more on sharing feelings and trust exercises. So I laughed hard at that. Alex and Evan each consult Bombay for advice, but he is adamant about remaining away from hockey. After Evan confronts her about issues facing the team, such as an equipment shortage, Alex despondently hides in the bleachers. When she witnesses Bombay warm up on the ice, they talk about Alex's coaching before Bombay tips her off to a cache of unclaimed hockey equipment at the Duck skating complex. Despite the new gear and their determination, the Don't Bothers are heavily beaten in their first game. Evan, upset over the loss, resolves to try harder and leads the team in an after-game skate. After she watches on, Alex realizes that her methods aren't working and she'll actually need to learn more about hockey to be a more effective coach. Yeah, I want to talk about that, just kind of on the theme of characters sometimes make mistakes because of the way their personalities are and the situation given to them, but don't act overly stupid or annoying. It is entirely believable that you would have this single mom who's been raising this child all by herself for the longest time, in a sport that's as violent as hockey is, not want her child to get hurt. And she's not a coach. This is not her thing. And she even says at one point, like, she has a great line, a great delivery. She was like, and if I had sunglasses on, I was straight up asleep. So that was great. So, like, the fact that she's driven to make this fun because the intensity of the Mighty Ducks was so bad. It is entirely believable that she would be terrible at it at first. And then, and then feel like, okay, when Evan has a great line in that episode where it's just like, we are here for the fun of the game, but when you're getting beaten that badly, it's not fun anymore. And boy, I played rugby for a year or so, and we were not great, and I certainly was not great, and it's not fun to lose and lose badly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I liked the fact that he didn't. I mean, I was expecting after that first loss for him to go, okay, that's it, I'm done. But instead, he goes, okay, we got to practice.
Right.
He understands that it's not going to, even in a Disney show, it's not going to happen instantaneously. And I thought that was a nice moment. And made kind of the eventual transition a little bit more believable.
Anything else about episode 2 that you want to talk about?
No. That was about it for me.
Okay, cool. Episode 3, Breakaway. Evan relentlessly tries to get Sophie to join the Don't Bothers, but she refuses each time. Winnie, the Cocoa Girl at the Ice Palace, is dumped by her boyfriend, and Nick tries to win her heart. But Bombay advises him to just be a friend. The Don't Bothers face the Ducks for the first time, and Sophie scores a barrage of goals. However, a play Bombay wrote down in Alex's notebook helps the Don't Bothers score their first goal. Sophie decides to quit the Ducks when Coach T berates the team and points her out single-handedly for letting Evan score. Alex confronts Bombay about his past, and he explains how he went from being a college hockey coach to running the Ice Palace. Sophie tells Evan that she still needs permission from her parents to join the Don't Bothers. So I really like the Sophie character. I liked her motivations because, again, she's the type A, from type A parents, she's the type A child who everything that she's doing to be the excellence of execution at everything. And what drives her away from the Ducks is that she's still a decent person at heart, and the degree of indecency inherent in the way things are going at the Ducks is just not right for her. This is no longer about anything that she takes to heart. This is just about crushing people around her, and that's not what she wants to do. So, but I did enjoy the logic of, if you come play for us, your playing time goes up.
Yeah. Yeah, your stats will be fantastic.
Yeah, and I like how she tried to pitch that to the mom, who they did a really good job of keeping her parents reined in too. Because there were a lot of moments, Evan, in the show where I was afraid they were going to write these characters in such a terrible way that I was like, I'm not going to be able to get through this show. And her parents were definitely like, I thought that that's where they were going, and then the dad's super reasonable, and the mom comes around, and I'm like, oh my god. this show did a great job of creating human beings. So there's that. So I like the sales pitch to Sophie, and then Sophie tries to pitch it to her mom, and her mom's like, "That's ridiculous." It just dismisses it outright.
Yeah.
There was that. There's something else about this episode that I really liked. Yeah, I thought Bombay's story about how he gave a kid. There's two things about Bombay in this, and then I'll turn it over to you. Bombay giving the kid money. But it breaking the recruitment rules because the kid is poor. I thought it was a good story and everything. They don't do anything with it though, in the sense of like they never go back to it and tell you what the kid's situation was or what happened really after. I think he might have there was a throwaway line like he plays for the Islanders now. Yeah,
I think so. But they mentioned it again when they get to the state tournament, but
right.
The details kind of shift. I mean, the way I remembered it was he just like gave him money for tape for his stick. I mean, it was like a technical violation, but wasn't going to change the kid's life or get him to commit to it, St. Cloud State.
He didn't buy him a car.
Yeah, I mean, and now the coach that does that just takes a year off and then goes to coach somewhere else.
Right.
But I mean, it fit with the story. It was he made the mistake. He broke the rules that he should have known better, even if it was more the letter than the spirit. So it fit with the story.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they did. There are the occasional elements of weak writing in this, and while I think getting they needed a reason he got to where he got to, it didn't feel like after they explained it and then didn't go into any other detail about it. It just didn't feel tremendously strong. It felt like they could have done a better job of giving him a reason to want to walk away from hockey, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, it wouldn't have. You wouldn't think it would have, ended his career or anything like that. I mean, it would be embarrassing to give him a black mark, but I mean, so.
I also think Gene
Hackman punched a kid in Hoosiers, and he got to go be a high school basketball coach. Well,
not like the early '80s.
Yeah.
The other thing, and again, a lot of greatness about the show, but minor quibbles about the writing here and there. This was an instance of that. So you have Nick who tells the Coco guy to piss off, and I was deathly afraid that this subplot with the girl being, dealing with different boyfriends was going to be a big part of the show. Thankfully, it's just an early thing, and it's more to give Nick stuff to do. Yeah, fine. I was fine with that. But Nick tells the Coco guy to go away, and then he's like, and then he throws the flowers in the dumpster, and Bombay catches him. And he's like, "You're gonna go get the flowers, and you're gonna give them to him." And I was like, it was a fine enough. It's like the message of it was, "You're not gonna get this girl. You're too young. You're not being a good friend by doing what you're doing, and so you're gonna give her the flowers, and you're gonna wait your turn or whatever it is he says to him." And I'm thinking there when I'm watching this, and I'm like, "Isn't the lesson here? You can't start a relationship off with a lie."
The part that jumped out to me was he said, I was just like you, had a crush on my babysitter, and he goes, and that didn't work out either. And Gordon's like, well, let's not talk about that.
Yeah,
that was a throwaway line, but yeah, I was actually hoping the Nick and Winnie romance that wasn't to be was going to run even longer.
Why?
Just because Nick cracks me up, and I can as a kid, I could understand that unrequited love. I don't know. I just I didn't want them to get together or anything. That would have been weird. But I would have liked to see more of that. But I mean, the show never gives us too little Nick. So
yeah, they also don't have Nick. They don't have any character really overcommitting to anything that's particularly cringy. Later on, Nick, and like shortly after this, actually, Nick and Evan, the next thing they do with Nick is Nick decides Evan's his best friend, and they do the sleepover. And again, I was like, oh no, this is going to end terribly. I'm going to hate this. And no, all the sleepover stuff was great.
Yeah. Some of the other highlights in episode 3, I was a sucker for any Mighty Ducks Easter eggs. I mean, Bombay drawing up the weird play. That was classic Ducks, but again, they didn't do it, right in the first episode. And then I was really excited because he said he inherited the Ice Palace from Jan, who was the brother that only appeared in D2. It was Hans, aka was it Joss Ackland, the villain from Lethal Weapon 2, was the Norwegian mentor in 1 and 3, but I don't know if he was busy for D2 or what. But they had brought his brother Jan in, and they just threw back a little continuity instead of just going, no, you didn't see another guy. It was all Hans. So I appreciate those details. Of course, long-time comic book reader that agonizes over every little continuity tidbit. So I appreciated that.
All right, episode 4, Hockey Moms. Bombay tries to motivate Alex.
AKA Bombay's type.
Yeah. Bombay tries to motivate Alex while helping her prepare to take on Stephanie, her boss, in the Slapshot Challenge, part of the Ducks' annual Hockey Moms skill challenge. An exhausted Sophie has been practicing with both the Ducks and the Don't Bothers and forges her mother's signature so she can play for the team. However, it all catches up with her when she shows up at a Ducks practice accidentally wearing her Don't Bothers jersey. And dun dun dun, and is confronted by her parents. During the showdown, Alex wins with a slap shot of 41 miles per hour, only to lose on a technicality that her skate crossed the line during the shot. Sophie is disappointed as the team she would play for was dependent on who would win, but later gets a surprise from her father, a signed permission slip for her to join the Don't Bothers. Elsewhere, Nick believes he is in the best friend zone with Evan, invites him to a sleepover. They also ask Coob and bond with the goalie while trying to retrieve Coob's phone from Nick's mother. I thought this episode was great. I thought all the stuff with Sophie really, really worked. Like I said, I was really afraid the parents were going to be awful, but the dad did a very dad thing. It was like no one wants to see their child sad. And if it's something that can be corrected, like it doesn't, have to be sad for a reason. Sometimes it's just unavoidable as a parent. But if it's like you realize as a parent you've made an error in how you're doing things, and maybe in a very general sense what you're telling your kid to do is the right thing, but they're so unhappy, they're so miserable about it. It's like, God, this isn't worth it. This is one of those things that's not a hill worth dying on. Not for the child to be this miserable. And the dad turns it around. Let me say this. I often complain on this podcast about the representation of dads in media is usually awful. We're all dumb, cavemen, awful human beings. We can't function. So when they actually have a dad acting like a good human being, and they gave the good thing the parents do to the dad and not the mom who was always perfect in every way. I was like, wow. Good on you, Mighty Ducks, for recognizing that all fathers are not, abandoning child, alcoholic, drunk madmen running people over.
Yeah, that's the next episode.
Or dummies.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, and this was the one where I felt like it was becoming more episodic or more sitcom-esque. Some of the, I look back at Falcon and Winter Soldier, it just felt like basically a 6-hour Marvel movie. Yeah. I know this is a totally different genre, but this is where they kind of used, the format to do some more stuff and explored the kids as opposed to Coob just being the antisocial goalie who suddenly one day can be a good goalie, in real life as well as on a video game.
Yeah, I like the Coob character, and I didn't think I would at first, because he was the shut-in and all of that, and, it's always, I was also afraid he was going to be ripe for fat jokes. And I'm like, really? Because how many more times are we going to do this on film? But they don't make an issue out of his weight. He's a big guy, and that's a good thing. They want a big guy to be in the goal position. So they didn't really harp on that at all, really. They don't really make a thing of it. They talk about him being kind of a shut-in for a variety of different reasons. They touch on it throughout the entire series. They don't ever touch on it too long at once. But they also don't make they don't make it an ongoing joke that he's a shut-in. He evolves. Coop comes out of his shell over the course of the season. And he's actually a really fun character. He does kind of funny things like, the magic socks that they'll talk about later. Like he didn't change it. They won with this particular pair of socks he was wearing, and so he refused to take them off, and that became a thing for a while. At one point, they make him take his socks off, and so he puts it in his helmet instead because he's that superstitious. They talk about like his parents have never come to see him do anything, and then they show up at the end, both in the state finals and then at the the game for the name. Yeah,
and then they do the bit about him singing show tunes, which just seemed like out of left field, but then they had such a great callback to it. In the last episode.
It was great. Like, it was fun that they they can't spend, even in 10 episodes of 30 minutes or so a piece, they can't spend too long on any one kid. That's a big ensemble cast, and they have a story to tell. But I thought like they gave Coop just enough, you know.
Yeah.
I thought, and when he finally starts to have a personality and he's not just a lump of clay, he's actually a really fun character. I was very surprised by him. I'm going to say that a lot. I was very surprised. Yeah. Anything else about episode 4?
I just I had in my notes, here come the awkward romance bits with I mean you knew it was going to happen, but you know, like you said, they had great chemistry, and then there were other parts where they like, it almost felt like they were forcing it. Like there was that line in the last episode where Alex says, "Well, you have us if you want it," and I'm like, that doesn't sound like it's about hockey.
Yeah, you have us.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, that was, but I mean, you know, you knew it was coming, so I that wasn't a complaint so much as it, because you know, that was, Gordon was getting together with Charlie's mom in the first movie, so it was just like, yep, Gordon has a type. It's like, what's that? Your son lacks a father figure but enjoys hockey.
It's so funny. I said this about like Pacific Rim of all things. You know, here's your Pacific Rim Mighty Ducks comparison. But like it was the most funniest will they won't they don't in cinema history at the end of Pacific Rim. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I have. It's been a while.
And here they do the same thing where it's like, will they won't they? They don't. They're just fine being friends for now.
Well, they're saving that for season 2. Actually, I don't know if they're going to do a season 2.
Yeah, I have not seen anything one way or the other. If I look close enough at the wiki for upcoming Disney Plus or current Disney Plus exclusive, I think it says pending, but who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, it was received well critically. I don't know how many people watched it. I mean, like the stats I always see for like record-breaking watches on any streaming service are always the Marvel things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, this isn't one that just like naturally. I mean, okay, it's the next season. You know, you got to do something different. And I mean, you know, are they going to just redo all the movies? Like next, it's international friendly competition, and then it's high school. So I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing more of it. I'm just not sure, you know, what direction they'd go.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm always a big fan of, you've told your story, now let it go, do something else. But if you have a good story to tell, I mean, who am I to tell you not to tell that story?
Yeah.
I think my standing criticism of any kind of sequel or prequel is, don't do it because you feel like you have to. Do it because you have this awesome story you want to share with the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Episode 5, Cherry Picker. Alex and Bombay are growing closer, leading to Bombay inviting Alex to a pro hockey game. Things are thrown off kilter when when Evan's father Rob makes a surprise visit while touring with his band. Evan is excited while Alex is concerned Rob will disappoint their son. Meanwhile, Lauren and Maya start to connect as friends, but their relationship is threatened when Lauren realizes she doesn't fit in with Maya's clique. Both situations come to a head at the Don't Bother's next game when Bombay kidnaps Rob, preventing him from catching his flight for a concert gig, thus making sure he attends Evans's game as promised, inspiring Evan to play his heart out. When Nick convinces the girls that their friendship is more important than social cliques, Evan's performance helps the Don't Bothers win their first game, but Trevor, Stephanie's son, and one of Evan's former teammates, informs Evan that Coach T was at the game and wants to meet with him. And the plot thickens. Evan Bevins.
Yes.
The scene with this was one of those really awkward, cringy moments. Both me and my daughter had that kind of very similar reaction to the father giving Bombay tips to woo the mother, and it resulting poorly. And I was like, oh God. And I think the reason why I cringed was like, if they get to carry this through multiple episodes, I'm not gonna be able to finish the show. And they resolve it within the episode, and they resolve it because, you know, instead of Bombay trying to be the bad husband unknowingly, he's himself, and it's himself that does well and makes up and makes him likable to Lauren. So thank God for that.
Yeah, the scene where he takes him to Evan's game, that was one of those where I was like, oh, come on, I don't think this would work out this well, but it was so good in character. I mean, it called back to Gordon losing his dad. You know, they didn't make it overly reliant on the movies, but they also didn't just go, hey, here's this thing that you remember as a kid. Remember it while we do her own thing.
Yeah, this is a kid hockey story that they just slapped the Mighty Ducks name on.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you have the line like, "This is kidnapping," and Gordon goes, "Is it?" And yeah, Nick. I mean, again, I keep talking about him, but the part where they're trying to win, and Maya and what was the other girl's name? The warrior princess.
Maya
and Lauren.
Let's see. Yes, Lauren.
Lauren, yeah, where they're fighting, and Nick gives his speech about, "I don't understand clicks. I tried to start one once, it didn't go well, but my boy needs this. So, ladies, top of the helix, and I was glad they had the double helix and they didn't overly rely on the flying V. I mean, it had to come back sometime,
sure.
But and then you get that Mighty Ducks theme in there, Yeah, although I thought the thing with the coach, I thought Trevor was going to be pranking Evan, and like he was just going to go and get laughed at the practice or something.
Yeah, I'm obviously glad that they didn't. It would make sense that if circumstances allowed for him to come back and now he's winning, and this coach sees they'll talk about this directly later. In fact, this is a direct quote from the movie. Like, you see us in your rearview mirror. And, it's entirely possible that, the subtext of what the coach is thinking is, for the love of Christ, I don't want the kid who I threw off this team to come back and win. How is that going to make me look? The law itself makes me look bad. But the fact that I made such a terrible coaching blunder is even worse.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I saw that. I actually looked at my daughter and I was like, dun, dun, dun. When they offered him the spot back on the team, I'm like, oh no, what's he gonna do? And while I was really like on edge. It's such a goofy show. It's a goofy kid show, but I was really invested by this point. I was like, what's he gonna do? Is this gonna turn into a thing where he leaves the team and now it's about the team versus Evan? Oh no! Because the coach made like halfway legit arguments.
Oh yeah.
Recruits come to our games, and don't and you being from a single parent household, you guys aren't rich. Aren't you concerned about how you're going to go to college? And he's 12, which is my only issue with this. It's like, at 12, you're really thinking about that? But he might have been. Who knows? He might have been a kid who's like a little anxious about his future. And
that led to the coach's best line. I know we're jumping into episode 6, but I know the hardships of being a single mom. I've dated plenty of them. like that somehow makes him credible.
Yeah, he I don't know if you noticed, but when he said I've dated a few of them, slime dripped off his face. So normally this is the part of the show where I say, what could have made the writing better? Grammarly. But I'll tell you, the writing was just great in this. I don't have any writing at all. But hey, writing can always be better, Evan Bevins. As a journalist, that sometimes you're stuck for a word, or things just are clunky. Wouldn't you love to have a tool to help you compose your thoughts in a more coherent manner?
I would, Mark. Are you going to tell me that such a tool exists?
It does, Evan Bevins. It does. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M network to download Grammarly for free. Episode 6. Spirit of the Ducks. The Ducks.
This one was actually directed by Steve Brill, that wrote and directed the first movie.
That is correct. Bombay.
Just had to throw that in there.
Yes, sir. Bombay bumps into Fulton Reed, one of the original Mighty Ducks, when a piece of flying concrete smashes his car window, and he learns about the Spirit of the Ducks Gala, celebrating the Ducks' 25th anniversary. Meanwhile, Evan is invited back to the Ducks by Coach T and seriously considers rejoining, going so far as attending a practice, but ultimately decides to remain with his friends. Bombay learns that he wasn't invited to the gala because he doesn't represent, quote-unquote, the best of the Ducks. He reunites with some of the old Ducks who, upon learning he wasn't invited, gate-crash the party and stand up for their former coach. The next day, the older Ducks join the Don't Bothers for a scrimmage at the Ice Palace, while Bombay accepts the assistant coach position for the Don't Bothers. After the practice, however, a video of Evan practicing with the Ducks is posted online, and the Don't Bothers walk out in disgust. So I'm gonna go give it to you, man. Like, you're the big Mighty Ducks fan here, more so than me, obviously. How did it feel? How did this episode feel to see like the big reunion episode?
Oh, I loved it. I know my brother was watching it too. He said that was his favorite. I mean, the reintroduction of Fulton. I mean, as soon as the window smashed, I mean, I'd heard Eldon Henson was going to be on there, aka Foggy Nelson from Daredevil. Who, and I don't understand, because in Daredevil he looked so small, and in the Mighty Ducks movies he's, even as a kid, he was massive. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, as soon as Bombay's window cracked, I'm like, okay, well, there's Fulton, because that was how he met him in the first movie. Was Fulton was firing hockey shots out into the street. I think somebody finally told him, hey, why don't you hit the puck away from the street? So that was great. Yeah, I love seeing all the old characters. They even mentioned Charlie, who was still mad at Bombay, so he falls back into his old patterns too. And I mean, my favorite moment in the episode was, where Gordon, of course, who hates hockey, so he goes and plays hockey whenever he's sad, is at the Ice Palace by himself, and they drive the limo onto the ice, which is how Gordon introduced himself to the team, because since he couldn't lawyer anymore, he had to, I guess, prove his dominance to a bunch of 10-year-olds. But that was an awesome, that was an awesome callback. And I thought that it was really cool. What they did with the folks they were able to get back. I mean, they couldn't have overdone it. They couldn't have had many more of the old characters in there anyway. And as much as I enjoyed that episode, and as much as I would have liked to have seen more of the old characters come back or seen them in more episodes, I think this was probably the best way to do it, was to showcase them in one episode so it could be its own thing. Like we were saying, you don't want it to be just a hockey story that you slap the Mighty Ducks name on, but you also don't want it to just be like, hey, here's mountains of fan service and we're not telling our own story. Right. So I thought this was about the perfect way to do it. Really fun way to call it back, but letting the show stand on its own too. You had lines like the Ducks have become a bunch of cake eaters. You had a throwback to when Fulton and Portman taught Kenny Wu to fight in D2. Mm-hmm. You had a lot of man buns in this episode. And then the Ducks, going to the gala and saying, hey, look, guys, you've missed the point of what the Ducks are. You'd think the Ducks are all about winning, but it's about how we won. That's why this is important to us. Mm-hmm. And if you guys can't see that Gordon Bombay was the reason for that, then I don't know what you're doing. The Ducks, recognize they went to scrimmage. The Don't Bothers, like, that's our legacy. That's the team that's following in our footsteps. The kids who are trying to do their best and are having fun with it, trying to do things the right way. And then you have the, they got some good shots in on the coach. But he had the line, put a bounty on that kid's head after Evan turns him down. And I'm like, it's not unrealistic that Evan would choose not to come back to the team. It's a little unrealistic that the coach cares that much about that one kid. But, like you said, if that kid ends up being the one to beat them, and since, apparently every time anybody sneezes in this town, it gets put on YouTube if it's about hockey, I guess I can understand his...
I think that's a more general thing. I think that's just the world we live in right now. Have I mentioned that I'm on TikTok?
I know. I'm so excited.
This is my new thing now. I say TikTok, and then I have a Twitch.
Maya and Lauren did a TikTok too.
They did do a TikTok. My daughter and I were actually laughing about that, and she was like, because this is a relatively new thing that I'm doing to market the podcast. Got to be where the audience is. That's what I've been told. And the audience is on TikTok by and large, that and Instagram. Yeah, apparently us old fogies on Twitter, that's a dinosaur platform.
Yeah, I got a Facebook page after I got a MySpace page after my brother had been bugging me, and then as soon as I did, he's like, everybody's on Facebook now.
Yeah, I get it. But so just to reference that, since you brought it up, so we're watching this, and I've been doing TikTok now for a while, and to do little commercials basically to advertise the podcast, and they do the bit where like, we should do a TikTok, And my daughter looks at me and she was like, not for nothing. But she maybe said it that way. And she was like, not for nothing, but why do they have to put TikTok in everything now? And I'm like, well, Lily, it's a sign of the times. If you're going to show contemporary children doing contemporary children things, this is what the children are doing. And so, you know, they don't have to invent a new thing that's already out there for them to do, when the purpose of it is to show them doing a thing kids do, and then, you know, as friends, so they can then reference it later for something else. I mean, that's all it really was. And it was funny. But I just thought her reaction to it was funny. Like, oh my God, this is everywhere I look now. Like, hey, welcome to my world.
You're like, what's wrong with TikTok?
Yeah. Since you said that you had children, so I feel like I'm okay to bring this up. You ever have those moments with your kids where, like, you do something that was formerly something of their world, and it's instantly not cool to them anymore, and you just like, nothing makes you feel older than that.
My daughters, we were visiting with my brother and his family, and they tried to explain to him the word yeet. And they would say yeet a lot, and then he would try to say it, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're doing it wrong! Stop!" My oldest even told her friend, she's like, "Yeah, I taught my uncle to say yeet, and he doesn't do it well."
Yeah,
I still don't know what it means.
I'm aware that yeet is a thing, but if you were to put a gun to my head and say, "Explain yeet," so that other people will understand it, I'd be dead. I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, but if I was the one holding the gun, I wouldn't know if you explained it correctly or not. So we'd be at quite an impasse.
I could fake you out.
Be like, that sounds good. Okay.
Pond hockey. This might have been my favorite episode of the entire bit. You know, as far as like a thing they do in the episode that I was like super into. The Don't Bothers are still stung by Evan's betrayal, especially Sophie and Sam. So Alex calls a players only meeting and forces them into a locker room to hash it out. Until the power at the Ice Palace fails. Bombay improvises and takes the team to the same frozen pond he used as a kid to help hone the team's instincts, and that helps Evan find a way to earn back his squad's trust by giving up the captaincy. Alex, meanwhile, starts to doubt her abilities as a coach after seeing Bombay is with the team and decides to step aside and let him take over. Bombay, however, admits he deliberately cut the power to the Ice Palace and reminds Alex that it was her who reawakened his love of the game and encourages Alex to take the reins and lead the team. Evan makes amends with Sophie and prevents Sam from quitting. After all the drama, the Don't Bothers come together for another late win. I really like this episode. You know, I like the idea, and Bombay says it, you know, clearly the team needed to make some changes, and, you know, we needed to turn things around. And so, you know, going out, and it had a very like Rocky IV feel to it. And I know, you know, Rocky IV, look, it's my son's favorite movie. Shut up.
Here's the thing. I have never seen Rocky IV, but I listened to the soundtrack ad nauseum. I had it on vinyl.
Oh, for a while there, that was my son's favorite album. We did a Metal Hammer of Doom on it a few years ago.
It's good taste.
Yes, sir. Because a burning heart is about to burst. It's a quest for answers and a quest for the thirst. Anyway, so, but it had like that very.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That very Rocky IV feel to it, you know, in the sense of, you know, or even Rocky III, very similarly. That's even a better example. You know, you have Apollo talking about, you know, even though you have all these emotional things going on with the loss of Mickey and all of that, what you also need is an entire change in how you approach boxing. So when they go to Los Angeles, a lot of the, you know, you'll always remember like the dumbest things about Rocky III. Like they remember Eye of the Tiger, they remember Hulk Hogan, you know, they remember Mr. T. What stands out to me about Rocky III was that speech Apollo gives to Rocky about, you have approached boxing from the same way for years now, and it got you this far. But if you're going to go to the next level, you have to incorporate these new things. And so the things they worked on were like speed and endurance and stamina, you know, the ability to actually dodge a hit every once in a while instead of leading with your head. And so both Rocky III and Rocky IV have Rocky doing these really oddball training activities in order to hone very specific skills. And that was kind of my takeaway from pond hockey. Even the stupidity of playing hockey blindfolded. they introduced it. You thought it was going to be a throwaway thing just to make the mom look dumb, but it ends up being a thing they'll reference later, and it ends up working for them. So I was like, okay, in retrospect, looking back on the series, that was kind of a fun thing. But that's what I liked about this episode was the use of pond hockey to say, hey, in order to repair some of the psychological damage this team, emotional damage this team is going through, we also need to work on some new skills in order to make us better and more competitive with the top tier teams.
Yeah. I liked a lot of that too. The hockey with your eyes closed. I don't know. That one was almost not a bridge too far. Cause I mean, it wasn't that much goofier than anything in the movies, but I was like,
at least she didn't say if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Ah, well, but I don't know. I was thinking when they actually employed it, they were just going to use it to psych the other team out, and then someone was going to open their eyes and look. But that's okay. I got excited again with the Easter eggs, where he was doing the soft hands and making them play with their phones, because in the original, to get that point across, he had them playing with eggs.
Right, which
and so that was another thing. It just fit perfectly. It was like, okay, here's a throwback, but where kids are always on their phone doing a TikTok and whatnot. So I like that the way they updated it. Instead of doing the exact same thing, or instead of just not making any reference at all, they just kind of threaded the needle there. But I liked. I shouldn't have been surprised, when Bombay said he's the one that cut the power, because that was a nice one, because I was still a little bit like, oh, but at the same time, like, I should have seen that coming a mile away.
Yeah, it seemed obvious to me, but I'm okay with obvious. Again, this isn't supposed to be a deeply complicated French noir. So. Episode 8, Change on the Fly. Inspired by Alex's putting fun first model, the Don't Bothers continue to perform better than expected. But after continuous praise from Sophie's parents, the temptation of winning brainwashes Alex, and she starts overworking the team, which makes them sour despite continuing their winning streak. Logan, who still struggles to skate, gets a lesson from Bombay, who after seeing Logan make pancakes before practice, realizes he has potential for stick handling. Nick, who had just scored his first goal in the previous game, becomes tired about everyone trying to one-up him. But when Logan talks to him, Logan reveals that he is envious of Nick's relationship with his mother's. The Don't Bothers play their final game of the regular season with a place at States on the line. Alex refuses Bombay's suggestion of putting Logan in the game several times. However, Nick tricks her, allowing Logan to take his place. And Logan uses the Michigan to score the game-winning goal and send the Don't Bothers through. However, an angry Alex berates the team in the locker room for going against her and the squad, realizing that she had gotten too focused on winning. Evan determines that his mother needs to be fired. Let me just say this now so it gets addressed. I don't know if the gay moms thing was in the news at all. I don't know if there was a reaction to it. I also don't care. My point in even bringing it up is I thought that the representation of the gay community in the show was handled very nicely. They showed two loving moms of this one child, and other than the obviousness of it, them being two women that are together in a relationship and raising a child, they don't make a big deal about it. They are people. And that is the point that I'm trying to make. I prefer when you're writing a show or a movie or whatever, and you're going to have people of all, and you can, I'm focusing on them because this being Disney, I could see people like, how do you have gay people in Disney? Like every time they put a gay person in a cartoon, like, what do you mean not Gaston, LeFou is gay, just the overwhelming over negative Twitter reaction. But every character in this, there's a lot of inclusion in this show, a lot of positive inclusion. You have Muslim characters, you have Indian characters, you have black, you have white, you have this, you have that. You have gay characters, and everyone's just people. Some people are good, some people are bad. And that is the way you should write your shows. You should not write characters based on those kinds of qualities as their only personality trait.
Yeah, it didn't feel forced or anything like that. It was just like, hey, here are some people. Yeah. It was. I mean, sometimes I get tired of not necessarily including different things, but being hit over the head with them.
Yeah.
I mean, now, I mean, I'm not going. Was it my favorite thing to see? Not necessarily, but I mean, not because I hate people or anything. That's just, not necessarily. I don't know. I'm trying not to say. I didn't really have a problem with it. No.
Sure.
And they didn't. They didn't beat you over the head with it. They're just like, hey, here's some people.
If you live in a community that's diverse, you're going to have people of the gay community in it, and you'll notice a very distinctive thing about that community. They act just like other people, and again, some of them are shitty. There is such thing. This may come across as controversial. To quote Jason Teasley, "I'm not pissed some people off, but some gay people are shitty. They're just terrible people."
Yeah.
As are some white people, as are some Muslims, as are some
straight people. Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't. I mean, I noticed it because it's not necessarily, but what I expected. But I mean, what it wasn't. It wasn't like the Mighty Ducks gay moms. It was, hey, here's some people. I mean,
right. We're gay for the Ducks. Yay! That sort of thing. Like every time they walk into a room, they're just in rainbow colors. Like nothing.
Yeah.
I look, credit where credit's due. Disney is trying, maybe more so than any other studio, to be as inclusive as possible. I laud them for that. I think trying to be more inclusive is a good thing. But just because you're trying something doesn't necessarily make you A, good at it, B, it effective. And I think just this one case, I can't speak to anything else. But since we're talking about the Mighty Ducks, that should be the one we're talking about. And in the case of the Mighty Ducks, where they represented at least a part of the gay community, it was there. I think it's a talking point, but that's all that really needs to be said about it. Like, yay for the writers of this show and for the producers to do a thing and do it well. It's such a apparently it's such a rarity, in my opinion, in Hollywood, that I have to call it out.
I mean, like I said, I don't want to sound like I'm being, unkind to anybody. I mean, it wasn't necessarily something I was looking for, but I mean, nor was it beating me over the head like, hey, this is the point of the show. This is what you have to like. It was, I mean, people are people.
I'm sure there were people like you that were just like, huh, lesbian couple in a Disney show, huh? Okay, then. Like not expecting it, but you see it and you go, okay, then. Moving on.
I mean, I'm not gonna, be like, oh, I'm boycotting. I mean, if I was going to get mad over that, then there's a lot of stuff a lot of characters did that I would find a lot more objectionable. Sure. So,
the other thing about this episode,
I'm not going to get you any angry comments or anything like that, but just by expressing my personal opinion.
You're entitled to your opinion, and it's not like you're like, and all the homosexuals should be burned. You're not saying that at all. No,
people are people.
So if someone heard any part of that past 5-minute discussion and got offended by it, grow some thick skin. Moving on. So the other thing I really liked about this episode was, I think it's entirely believable that that the mother in this particular situation would get a big head about it and lose sight of what all there is to do, especially around like the super intense power moms around her. Sure. We all want to be a part of a community, and we all want to fit in, and she's now starting to fit in, and it was entirely believable that she'd be at least briefly an idiot about it. Yeah. But when she was confronted, I thought it was handled well, and she didn't go off the deep end. I thought that, again, it was all very well written. The other thing, it was really the last episode. I was thinking about how the kids, it took a bit, but the kids finally forgave Evan for his transgressions, and they didn't make a big thing out of that either.
Yeah, they it didn't drag on for several episodes it was just like, okay, that was a crappy thing you did, but you're back. You stuck with us. Okay.
Yep. All right, moving on.
Oh wait, hey, hang on. Sure. I just wanted to, because I feel like you're doing a good job of criticizing the writing, and I'm here to point out the Easter eggs and the funny quotes. But the whole time, there were all these great references to Mighty Ducks and Mighty Ducks 2. I may have mentioned this at one point, but D3 was my favorite. I don't know if I said that. But so finally at the opening of the episode, we got a reference to D3, where Evan passes to Nick and he looks like a deer in the headlights and scores. Then he goes, "Don't ever do that to me again," which happened at the beginning of D3, and then was a callback when Goldberg 20-some-year-old, spoiler alert, Goldberg scores the winning goal in the final game, and he looks at Charlie and goes, "Don't ever do that to me again." So I was celebrating there. And then I couldn't believe it. I don't know if they just didn't mention it until now or if it took this long for me to notice, but Alex and Stephanie, the law firm where they work is the Ducksworth firm, which is the one that Gordon Bombay worked for, where the Ducks got their name.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you're here to point these things out because God knows I wasn't paying any attention to it. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've done the Long Road to Ruin, let alone watch these movies.
Yeah, I got my youngest to watch them with me before the show came out or leading up to the show, and then she's watched most of the episodes with me.
How'd she like it?
She liked it pretty well. She's not as she's not as steeped in the lore as I am. I feel like I'm overselling it to use the word lore for them. Oh, here comes my cat. But anyway, but yeah, she's been enjoying it. I mean, it's fun for her. She's 6. So.
All right, rock on. All right, episode 9. 9. Whoops, there we go. Head games. Evan fires Alex from her coaching position. She accepts it, realizing her mistakes, and decides to go off to her office to get work done. Evan wants to ask Sophie to the party being held for the players the night before the tournament, but she responds in a confusing manner, leading him to ask podcaster. I love this character, by the way. I thought as a child sports commentator, she was fantastic, and she had really. She had a really funny interactions with her dad. I laughed anytime they were playing the hockey, just to hear them do their bits.
Yeah. And another supportive dad. He clearly knows nothing about it, but she needs a color commentator. So there he is. Yep. And I like the way they worked the podcasting into it, because finally, for the first time, going back to the movies, the level of enthusiasm for the announcer actually made sense. I mean, like even in D3, they had like the kid from The Nanny who was like a full-on professional broadcaster and had an NHL player in as a guest commentator. And I'm like, look, I know we need the play-by-play guy to kind of explain the action, at least to those of us who aren't as familiar with hockey. But it was like, wow, this really goes into a lot of production for youth hockey in the movies. So this was like, hey, this is a kid. It's people her age, and she's into it. It makes total sense.
So, he asked Mary Jo for advice. She corners him into asking her instead, but just to make Nick jealous. Sophie and Nick notice this, and Sophie decides to show up with Trevor, and Nick is jealous since he has a crush on Mary Jo. At work, Alex inadvertently finds out that Stephanie and Clark are getting a divorce, and she bonds with her depressed boss, finding similarities in their lives. Meanwhile, Bombay and Coach T have a drink at the bar, but Coach T was just manipulating Bombay to drop the secret that he wasn't eligible in the NCAA to coach due to a mistake Bombay made years ago. This leads to a tournament committee disqualifying Bombay and the Don't Bothers. Alex and Stephanie, having received a call from Evan, show up as Bombay's attorneys and expose a mistake on the league side of the argument, and the league decides to let Bombay coach. Evan gets Mary Jo and Nick to hang out after he reconciles. You like each other. Go. I'm like, you're my hero, kid. And he reconciles.
But I thought the thing that bugged me is, like, wasn't Nick Mary Jo's co-host on the podcast? That's why her dad was filling in, and then he's like, well, we haven't really hung out.
Yeah, after his fight with Sophie, later revealing their feelings to each other. So let me say this. Something that Robert Winfrey and I talk about when we do TV reviews, more when we do TV reviews, less when we do movies, but it does come up every once in a while. And that is, we really hate the writing trope in film and television where things in the plot would not happen if only the characters would talk to each other.
Yes.
And that is one of the things about this that I was keying into, that just when you think you're going to have a situation like that, the characters talk to each other and they resolve it and act like human beings. So they're not relying on like cheap tension to drive the drama. They are relying on likability of characters and, interest level in the plot and, in fun hockey things, which is what the show should have been. Like, if you go back and listen to this podcast and kind of like tally up the things that I've said about it that are critical, it's a lot of quibbles. It's an extremely well-written show. I mean, everyone has heard me say on here before, like, oh, it's not The Wire or Watchmen or anything, and it's not. But I think, in a show that's editorializing about, hyper intense child sports, and relationships, everything, this is everything I want a show to be. And it doesn't have to be heavy. It's light. It is light. It is enjoyable. It is something I could watch with my daughter for a day and a half, and we had a good time watching it together. But it's exceptionally well made for the level of entertainment it's going for. And that's to its credit. That's not a knock. That's not saying, like, well, what's good for porn. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you're not dealing with, the intensity of the criminal elements of Baltimore here. You're dealing with children's hockey. And that is the level at which it was handled. But the craft of it is really, it's nothing to complain about. Just like I say, anytime I start to think the writing is starting to waver, they self-correct. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah, I think you've been more positive on it than I have. And I thoroughly enjoyed it too. But
well, thank you. Anything about this episode?
I thought the thing with Maya and her warp speed romance with the other kid, that could have been annoying, but I think they did just enough. I mean, it made me, it was supposed to be annoying to a certain extent, but they didn't overdo it. Of course, I like the self-referential, Frozen comment. Yeah, oh, princesses always need a prince. Well, except in Frozen, those girls are really independent.
Yeah, I thought they were going to make more of the Lauren and Maya thing, and thankfully they touched on it just enough to give the episode some dramatic tension, and then they relieved it, because I really thought this was going towards a place of the whole team's going to fall apart right before the finals, and it's like, oh, come on, we already do this.
But it just, gave those characters, another, not the story, maybe a little subplot, and instead of, it was just like there was one episode where there was Lauren and Maya, and then that was it. It gave it kept just about everybody had something to do.
Yeah, even Sophie and Evan, they had their spat, and then she initially walks out of the photo booth on him because he's being a douchebag, and then they make up on the bus. Like, great. For 30 minutes, that was all I needed. Please don't. The show does a great job of not dragging things out.
Yeah.
All right. So last one, and then we're done. Speaking of getting on with it. Actually, hang on. Speaking of getting on with it.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
I'm such a child. State of play. The Don't Bothers win through the finals at state to face off against the Ducks. However, Sophie's leg injury gets the best of her, and she refuses to sit out the game, as this would make the Don't Bothers forfeit for not having enough players. The rest of the Don't Bothers decide her injury is not worth the trophy, and all agree to make her sit out. The Ducks are crowned champions due to forfeit. On the way out of the rink, the Ducks and the Don't Bothers meet each in the corridor and agree to play a game at the Ice Palace with a bet on the line. If the Ducks win, the Don't Bothers must drop out of the league. And if the Don't Bothers win, then they get the Ducks name. The game at the Ice Palace starts off with the Don't Bothers scoring first. Coach T encourages his team to play dirty since there's only one referee. After the second period, the Ducks are ahead by 2. In the Don't Bothers locker room, the team comes together once more, and Bombay surprises them with the original Ducks uniform. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun.
Which that was one I should have seen coming a mile away, because the jersey reveal happens in every Ducks movie, or the switch to the Ducks jersey. I should have seen that one coming a mile away. Yeah. And there was nothing wrong with that, but I didn't, so it was an extra nice moment. Although I did, continuity nerd in me was like, wait a minute, Julie Gaffney and Kenny Wu weren't on the original Ducks. They wouldn't have had those jerseys. But then I had to convince myself that it's just like LeBron James having a throwback Lakers jersey for when he didn't play on the Lakers. These are the kind of you're looking at the writing. I'm like, wait a minute. There is no Julie Gaffney original Mighty Ducks jersey. So I had to talk myself down off of that one.
So do you? I know you said you weren't like the world's biggest hockey fan, but what was the name of the arena in Anaheim? Didn't the pond?
The Arrowhead Pond at Anaheim or something like that. Or the pond at Arrowhead.
That's where they had WrestleMania 12, if I remember correctly. A little bit of wrestling trivia there with our hockey. I was trying to think of because I know, because you know what it is. The Ice Palace used to be what the Tampa Stadium is called, where the Lightning play. So I was mixing them up. All right, last one. The Don't Bothers. Oh, we've already been through this. Sorry. The game at the Ice Palace. After the second period, Coming together. That's it. Ducks uniform. That's where we left off.
There we go. Yeah, sorry about that. Totally derailed the synopsis.
It's okay. The don't bother tie the game up and then use the flying V formation to score the game-winning goal and secure the Ducks' name. Later, of course. Later, Bombay resurfaces the ice with the Zamboni and the original Ducks logo at the center ice in the Ice Palace. So I'll give my summation of the whole series also, and then you'll have the final word and we'll get out of here. I really I like the way they handled the finale. You know, instead of giving them the win in the big tournament, and it being very cliched and tropey, they made it more gritty, and not gritty like in like The Punisher on Netflix sense. I mean, like, like this was a battle. This was never about winning a championship. None of these kids were in it for a trophy. They were in it they were in it for acceptance. They were in it, to prove their mettle, as it were. The show itself is about, going when things go off the rails, when things lose their sense of self, their sense of identity, the Ducks franchise not being what it once was, and having wandered away from its roots, that sort of thing. And so the only way it could have ended, I think, and I'm glad this is the way that it did end, was with the two teams fighting for the Ducks name and really its legacy.
Yeah,
perfect. Just mwah. Chef's kiss, perfect. The best way they could have ended the show. I like the fact that, the evil team was smashing them at one point, because it's like, this team is supposed to easily beat every team in the league. They should not have an easy time with it. I wish they had called it out a little bit more directly, but I think the idea of you guys are the smaller, more, smarter team, you have to use your wits to beat them because you're never going to beat them in strength. It's implied, it's sort of pointed to from about 50 yards, but I kind of wish it was a little bit more like, I wish Bombay had said something to that effect, but it's a quibble. It's a quibble in the dialogue writing. It's fine. Not like it's fine. Not my usual. It's fine. It's
hashtag it's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Overall, like I said, I've been. The joke with me is how critical I can be of something and how negative in some people's eyes. Ronnie Adams a few months ago, last month, Evan Bevins. Last month we talked about Sweet Tooth. Just want you to know that it was a month ago.
Okay.
We talked about Sweet Tooth, and we got into a whole side conversation about like overcritical I can be about things. But when I like something, when I think something is well done, I'm not afraid to heap praise on it. I've heaped praise on many a thing. I'm getting a lot of reactions now from people where like, I'm almost afraid to know what you thought about this because I don't want to know that you hated it. And it's like, no, there are things I heap praise on. It doesn't have to necessarily even be something as something like The Watchmen or The Wire. I can heap praise on something that was competently done and even better than competently. And I think in the case of the Mighty Ducks, the last thing I'll say, and then you can have the last word. I think in the terms of the Mighty Ducks, this was made with care. I think the people involved in the project knew this meant a lot to people like you and good friends of the show. That are sometimes on their podcast. Andrew Graham, Jason Teasley, Robert Winfrey, they're all kind of fans of the movies and whatnot, and would have at one point been on the show to talk about this. And I think this was a love letter to those fans. It was a love letter to the franchise. The cast was strong. Everyone gives a great performance. There's nobody in here that I didn't believe or took me out of it. And as I said before, I thought the writing especially for a show like this on a streaming platform was so much better than I thought it had any right to be. I was not looking forward to this. I wasn't. I kind of did this because like it was. I'm interested in talking about things that people are passionate about. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'll come along for the ride. I'm kind of open. Like, me and Jesse, it's one of the reasons why we got along so well. And for a while, it was just the two of us doing this with with Robert Winfrey, was we would talk about anything. And I'm interested in having conversations with people who are passionate about stuff. And so I was happy to do this. And it turns out it was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought, it'd be hard to imagine how they could have done it better, by sticking to, what came before and honoring that, putting in a lot of Easter eggs and history, but not weighing it down with it. I mean, you didn't have to have seen any of the Mighty Ducks movies, I don't think, to enjoy this. It adds to it, certainly, but you didn't need to. I mean, it was a underdog hockey team that won. That's all you need to know. They tell you everything you need. But yeah, they kept to the spirit and feel of the movies, but they used the episodic format well, so you could explore each and every character, except the checkmates, which didn't bother me at all. But I feel the need to be complete. So yeah, the ending. You're right. This is the way it had to end, because for them to and once we have fun, we win and beat everybody. That wasn't really the message they were going for. So right. They had to. If they could have won, that would have been great. But the point was, and they did a great job of that in between the periods before Gordon brought in the jerseys, where they said, you know what, we've already won. I made a friend. Nobody liked me before. I never left my house, and now you guys are my friends. And whether we win or lose, we've already won because of what this team means to us. And it didn't. I kept waiting for it to feel like, okay, it's a little after school special or a little preachy, but it didn't, because they showed us, the sleepover and Lauren and Maya not only, having the argument and then hugging, but staying friends through that. And even when Maya was annoying, and they showed us all of that. And Logan, initially being the cool kid who couldn't skate or anything, and everybody liking him, not because he was the best player on the team, because, when Evan fired his mom, he goes, well, Mom, you were mean to Logan. He's like our puppy dog. It's just because he's a nice guy. Right. And a lot of great lines in the last episode. With the one, I think the team was the Lumberjacks, the really big kids, and the woman's yelling, "Come on, baby, make me proud!" And Nick goes, "Wait, is that his mom or his wife?"
I laughed hard at that.
Oh yeah. And then the part that I loved right at the beginning, when they go in and they see the big arena, and Gordon says, well, it's the same dimensions as every other rink, which is, I assume, was a nod to Hoosiers, where they go to the state tournament and Gene Hackman has them measure the dimensions of the court and the height of the goal. He's like, see, it's just like ours. This is, it's a bigger building, but this is the same court. And then Gordon goes, well, actually, the rink at the Ice Palace is about 20 feet shorter. But, it's the principle of the thing. That cracked me up. Because for all the moments that it could have been a cliched sports story, they really worked to kind of undercut those, or kind of twist your expectations a little bit, as straightforward as a lot of it was. So yeah, I thought it was a blast, and a worthy successor to the franchise that I enjoyed each a little bit more than the last one.
Cool. Well, like I said, man, I'm glad we did this. I think, I really had a great conversation about it. I enjoyed talking about it with my daughter. So overall, I mean, when all the things are good, it can't be bad. I mean, it is what it is. So I'm glad we did this, and I'll have to get you on for any other TV show that you're. I mean, we usually have you on for comics. I know we're going to talk Billionaire Island in the not too distant future. But
if the library ever gets it in for me.
But in the meantime, so. Today is
got a dog here too.
Today is July 11th when this is airing.
Well, yes, it is. I hope you had a nice Independence Day.
Yes, sir. And so this week we've got a loaded schedule. Tomorrow night, you're actually going to be back again tomorrow, whether you know that or not. You and I are going to be talking. You and I are going to be talking Black Widow: Deadly Origin issues 1 through 4 on July 12th for source material. Tuesday night, the July 13th, we are reviewing the movie Black Widow. We're taking the week off from doing the Metal Hammer of Doom, and we're reviewing. Jesse and I are reviewing Gunpowder Milkshake instead. That looked like a fun movie. That's on Netflix now, or will be on Netflix this Wednesday rather. So we'll check that out. I think that's going to be fun. Wednesday is kind of a double shot. We've got a re-airing of the Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies movie that Robert Winfrey and I reviewed a few years ago. That's from the archives. And then myself, Chris Bailey, and Patrick Mullen will be doing our third installment of the Mania of WrestleMania. This time we are talking WrestleMania 3. It's a deep dive into all the things that made that pay-per-view happen. Friday, we've got our Damn You Hollywood Cinderella re-air from 2015. And then on Saturday, we've got we'll have a Trip to Trivia that is airing on Warner Brothers Animation, and we will have our Long Road to Ruin for the animated Cinderella movies that we did a few years ago. We did, obviously there was the first one that was in theaters and the 2 direct to DVD sequel. So that'll be fun. So anything you want to plug? This being the week of July 11th.
Yes. Well, July 11th, I'll still be on my blog, asterisk51.blogspot.com. I will still be working my way through Captain America, Man and Wolf, the modern classic, or possibly not. I've never read it, but I've cracked jokes about it for 20 some years. So I'm finally reading it and seeing how Captain America turned into a werewolf. And you can also check out my blog on Fridays and see the fascinating Free Willy movie sequel posters that I drew when I was bored in 7th grade. Oh, yes. And discussing what might have been going through my mind and what they remind me of now. And the occasional reviews or just ramblings on comic books, movies, other things. I'm finally getting to where I'm posting semi-regularly, and so hopefully there'll be some fun stuff on there to check out. And you can go to newsandsentinel.com. I write a column for the Parkersburg News and Sentinel on the comic book origins of different movie and TV characters. I was going to call it source material, but somebody was using that name already. So, yeah, so I'll have those, and I think it's kicking into high gear. So I'll have a Black Widow one up on there now, and there you go. And I'll be popping up whenever Mark says, "Hey, we're going to do this," and I'll go, "Hey, I want to talk about that."
Cool. Well, I always love having you on, Evan. You're a funny guy. Hey, what are you listening to these days? Before you go, what kind of music are you listening to?
Let's see. These days, my kids and I have Weezer's Africa on a loop playing because Weird Al was in the video.
Okay.
So, and then I'm discovering all kinds of things. My daughter's is showing me songs by Maroon 5 that I don't dislike, and all kinds of different stuff. What the kids are listening to.
Well, if you would like to get more of what the kids are listening to, if you'd like to do a deep dive into Weird Al or Weezer, they're both there. You should click our link in the description of this podcast for getamazonmusic.com/W2M network. That's getamazonmusic.com/W2M network for a free 30 days of the service. You click the link, you sign up for the service. You can stream all the music you want for 30 days, whether it's Weezer, Weird Al, Maroon 5, though I don't know why you would do that. Not a fan. But if you're like me and you want to, listen to some of the metal that we've done here, like Fear Factory or Dr. Colossus or Oakley Dokley or anything else related to The Simpsons, that's also heavy metal. You can find it all on AmazonMusic.com. Get your free 30 days. When it's over, if you want to keep going, like I would, keep paying for the service once a month like you would do for Spotify or Apple Music. If not, you discontinue it. No fuss, no muss. All right, that's it. That's the last word. For Evan Bevins, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and Ducks forever.